This is everything you need to know about effort associated with resources and how to manage workload inside of Monday.com in less than 10 minutes. By the way, if you'd like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, check out the link in the description below. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm inside of our example Monday.com system. Now, the requirement today is to walk you through how effort works, how assigning tasks that have associated effort to people works, and then how to manage different resources or different people's workload inside of Monday.com. Now, let's just understand the fundamentals before we get into this. What is effort? As I'm sure you know, in order to do literally anything in life, there is a certain amount of effort that is required, unfortunately. In business terms, we need to be able to track the amount of effort associated with the task, associated with a campaign, an activity of some description, whatever the case may be. We then need to be able to assign that effort to a particular person within inside of your organization. And then we need to monitor to see how busy they are in comparison to how busy they could be. Are they being overutilized, underutilized? Are they working at the optimal amount? So what we're going to do is going to create a new board, and this is going to be our tasks board. Now, this entire process can be applied to literally anything inside of your Monday.com system, but I'm just going to walk you through the basics to begin with. I have a more comprehensive video on this on my channel if you want to learn the nuanced details and the nitty gritty. But we have our tasks board here. I'm just going to set it up very quickly. So to do tasks, and then let's just go for done tasks. Keep it really simple. Awesome. So you'll notice we have a couple of different tasks here. It's easy, right? We can then assign a task to different people inside of our organization. I've assigned that to Nick, that to Alex, and that to Sakil. Now, it's important now to be able to track the amount of effort associated with a particular task. Now, there are two options within Monday.com. Option one is we can assume that the task in hand, or the task in question, is exactly the same amount of effort as every other task inside of the system. In other words, we can measure effort by the number of items that particular person is assigned. Being that Nick is assigned 1, Alex is assigned 1, but if Nick is assigned 2 and Sakil is assigned 1, then the value or effort is 2 for Nick and 1 for Sakil. But in most instances, unfortunately, not all tasks are created equal. So as much of a nice idea that is that we track effort associated with the number of tasks assigned to someone, it's not realistic. So the alternative solution is we then look at effort quantified how we want to quantify it. So what I would then recommend doing is adding a numbers column, and I would call this effort, okay? So this numbers column is where we are going to enter in the amount of effort associated with this particular task. So I can see here, as an example, we have item number 1, Nick is assigned to this. I could go ahead and enter in a value of 1, and then I could say this is a value of 2, and then I could say for Sakil's task, it's actually a value of 5. That means that this task is higher in effort than it is for the 2 tasks that Nick has been assigned. Where this gets slightly more complicated though is how we quantify effort. So obviously assigning a figure of some description to indicate that this is harder or less hard or more effort or less effort is quite easy. But what does that actually mean? So we have, again, a few options. We can do it in days. So we could assign an effort and we would assume that 1 would equal days. So we could put in brackets days and then close brackets. So it's obvious. So this would be 2 days. This would be a 5-day task. We could also change this to hours. Okay. So this could be a 1-hour task. And then if I change this to 5 hours, that would be a 5-hour task. This could be a 12-hour task. And then this could be a 30-hour task as an example. Or we could do it in weeks. Again, it's up to you. My personal preference is to do it in days. So what I would do is I would typically have 1 for 1 day and then 0.5 for half a day. And then if it's less, you can obviously go 0.2, 0.1. But it also, if you need to factor in the entire week, 5 days, 5 working days, that's quite easy to manage. Okay. So that's how I would quantify effort. And because we have a person column, we can assign a resource to that task and then have an associated effort per task. Now you can standardize the effort if you wanted to run automation, say if this particular task is created, then set this effort as 4, for example, because that task is something you do on a daily basis, and you know it's going to take X amount of time. So that is all viable. Okay, so now what we want to look at is how to manage our resources in association with the tasks that they have been assigned. So in order to do that, what I would do is press the plus button. We want to create a new dashboard, and this is going to be, I would call this resource management, and just press create dashboard. And then we want to connect all of the boards that we want to pull in effort and resource data from into our dashboard. So in this case, it's just going to be our tasks board. This could span across many different boards. But in this instance, I'm just selecting tasks and going to hit done. And then what I want to do is go to plus button, top left-hand corner, add widget, go to more widgets. And then the widget we are looking for in this case is the workload widget. So this is the workload widget that we want. This workload widget allows us to see, and I'll come on to how to set this up as we go through, but we can now see each of the users, so unassigned, Sakil, and myself. So if I go to tasks here, we'll see all of these different data points, and then the week, and we can select between days, weeks, months, press today to go to where we are, and we can see what they're assigned, the amount of effort that's associated with it, etc., etc. This isn't set up yet, so we need to configure it. So we need to go to the cog, top right hand corner. The time column that we want to select is the date column. The resource type is going to be the person, so that is the resource, and then the effort and capacity is going to be the effort in days. Okay, and then we would go which column defines effort. It would be 1 by 1, and then we want to select days. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video, you could also use count of items if you wanted to. So if you just wanted to see as an effort the amount of items assigned to that particular person, that would assume that all tasks are exactly the same in effort, then you could do, or you can use 1 by 1, and then obviously we can have a custom column, which is our effort, or our numbers column, and then we can define it there. So now we just need to run through more of these settings. We can select how to divide the effort. So in a 10 effort project, Dan's effort will be 5, while Dana's 5. I.e. being that if 2 people are assigned to the same task, it's going to split based on it's going to divide by the number of people assigned. Or the alternative option is you just do a sum. So if there are multiple people assigned to a task, they all have the effort of 10. I think split makes more sense. And then the more important thing is the capacity function. So you have work schedules within inside of Monday.com, and that's assigned on a profile level and by your admin. Alternatively, you can just use the custom function. Now, you can define a weekly capacity, which is default max amount of effort a person can be assigned per week. So in this case, if we are using days, it would be 5 days, 5 working days. Okay. And then this is just a blanket default max for absolutely everyone. If there are some people that work 3 days a week, 2 days a week, you can press edit capacity per person/team, unselect apply default max capacity to everyone, and then you could say, right, Nick only works 4 days a week, Sakil works 5, so their availability is slightly different, okay, or their capacity is slightly different. We then have some view settings, so we can go through whether it's a number or a percentage. We can color by, and then color by the status, for example, of the tasks, if you want to then drop down and see the tasks assigned or the rolling up to that effort. We then have fiscal year. Again, this is not overly important. And then we just have the boards that are connected, obviously only the one board, and then we've got the groups as well. So you could hypothetically remove done tasks from your resource management. If you wanted to be able to see the past as well, then you would leave it. But that is pretty much everything. So now you can see here, if I click down, there is one task assigned to myself on Monday. And I can see here that the effort is 5. So if I go to my tasks, I can see that the effort is 5. Now, actually, it should be 1, let's say. Or because I only work 4 days a week, it should be 0.8. That's the maximum amount. Again, it's kind of, if you're looking at a day level, for example, it's going to look slightly different to a week level. So if I change this to 1, if I go to my resource management, it's going to be in red here. Red indicates that I am over allocated work, or I'm over capacity. Where there is a dark blue and a light blue, it will show you the capacity remaining, as in you can see here that I've got 63% capacity for that particular day. So you could add 37% more work onto my plate if you wanted to. And you can see the other days I'm empty, and this applies for everyone. But if you change it to a week view, it gives you a slightly different view. So it now shows that there is 1.5 effort, so 1.5 days worth of work assigned to me for that particular week, my maximum being 4. Now, if I then go back to this and I just change this to 2 and change this to 2 and then go to resource management, you will see that there's a perfect blue tick showing exactly how much work I've got, and I am working at the optimal level, which is of course what you would look to manage for all of the various team members inside of your organization. So that is pretty much everything I could cover in this video. We've got effort assigned to tasks, and then assigning people to tasks, and then managing the resources on this view here using the workload management widget. Hopefully this video has been helpful. If you'd like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, check out the link in the description below. We would love to help. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate this was quick, but it is a 10-minute tutorial. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.